Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's breaking story comes from the heart of the Middle East, where tensions between Israel and Hamas have reached another critical point. Reports confirm that Israel has officially rejected Hamas's latest peace proposal, which Israeli officials are calling dangerous and unrealistic. This rejection has once again placed the fragile ceasefire talks in jeopardy and raised concerns about a potential escalation in Gaza, according to official statements. Hamas presented a peace framework that included several controversial terms, including a full withdrawal of Israeli forces from border zones and an immediate lifting of all restrictions on arms imports into Gaza. Israel viewed these demands as direct threats to its national security, insisting that such conditions would allow Hamas to rebuild its military infrastructure and prepare for future attacks. The Israeli government said it remains open to negotiation, but only under what it calls realistic and secure terms. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reportedly told his cabinet that the safety of Israeli citizens cannot be compromised for temporary political gains. Officials emphasized that Hamas's proposal was not a peace plan, but a tactical maneuver designed to gain military and strategic advantage. Meanwhile, Hamas leaders in Gaza accused Israel of sabotaging the peace process. They argue that Israel's refusal to compromise proves that Tel Aviv is not interested in genuine peace, but rather in maintaining control over Gaza's borders and economy. Hamas officials released a statement calling Israel's actions a declaration of continued hostility and warning that the situation could deteriorate rapidly if international mediators fail to intervene. The United States has been closely monitoring these developments. Secretary of State Antony Blinken urged both sides to show restraint and return to negotiations under the guidance of U.S. and Egyptian mediators. However, sources indicate that Washington privately supports Israel's stance on security matters, especially the issue of Hamas rearmament. Blinken emphasized that any peace deal must include long-term guarantees against rocket attacks from Gaza into Israeli territory. Analysts say this latest dispute shows how far the two sides remain from a durable peace. Hamas's political bureau reportedly demanded that all Israeli surveillance operations in Gaza airspace be halted, something Israeli defense officials completely ruled out, given the group's history of smuggling weapons through tunnels and sea routes. Israel insists that continuous surveillance is non-negotiable and essential for national defense. In Tel Aviv, thousands gathered to show support for the government's firm position. Demonstrators carried Israeli flags and chanted "No surrender, no fear," while in Gaza, crowds rallied to protest what they called Israel's aggression and blockade. The contrast in public sentiment highlights the deep divide between the two societies, one yearning for security and the other demanding sovereignty. The United Nations has also weighed in urging both parties to resume dialogue without preconditions. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said the humanitarian situation in Gaza remains catastrophic, with over 2 million residents depending on international aid. He warned that further delays in peace talks could lead to a new humanitarian disaster. In the region, military analysts warned that a breakdown in talks could quickly reignite full-scale conflict. Intelligence reports suggest that Hamas has been reorganizing some of its battalions and testing new types of locally produced rockets, despite the current truce. Israeli air surveillance recently detected unusual activity near the Gaza border, which some experts interpret as a possible sign of preparation for confrontation. Behind the scenes, Egypt and Qatar have been trying to mediate once. Again, Cairo reportedly presented a revised version of the ceasefire plan, but neither Israel nor Hamas has agreed to its terms. So far, Egyptian diplomats described the discussions as extremely tense, with both sides refusing to make key concessions. Qatar's envoy warned that if negotiations collapse, Gaza could see a resurgence of violence within weeks. In Washington, the Biden administration is under pressure from both pro-Israel lawmakers and human rights groups, pro-Israel advocates say. Washington must continue supporting Israel's right to defend itself, while critics argue that the U.S. should push harder for a balanced peace approach that also addresses Gaza's humanitarian crisis. This political divide in Washington reflects the broader complexity of the Israel-Hamas conflict, which has defied resolution for decades regional. Observers say the rejection of Hamas's demand marks another missed opportunity for peace. Some believe Hamas deliberately proposed extreme terms knowing that Israel would refuse in order to gain international sympathy. Others argue that Israel's hardline stance may further isolate it diplomatically, particularly in global forums where calls for Palestinian statehood are gaining momentum. As of now, both sides remain in a state of cautious hostility. Israel has reinforced its border defenses and kept air defense systems like Iron Dome on high alert. Military officials say they are ready for any contingency. Hamas, meanwhile, continues to issue warnings, saying Israel will bear full responsibility for the consequences if the talks collapse completely. In the midst of these tensions, civilians continue to suffer. Gaza hospitals are overwhelmed, food shortages persist, and infrastructure damage remains unrepaired. International aid organizations are urging immediate humanitarian corridors. But such proposals often stall due to mutual distrust between Israel and Hamas. Every delay adds to the suffering of ordinary people caught in the middle of this enduring conflict. Experts warn that without major compromises from both sides, the cycle of ceasefires and clashes will continue indefinitely. The rejection of Hamas's demands may have been a calculated decision by Israel to prevent future threats, but it also highlights the absence of a long-term political solution. The conflict remains not just a military standoff, but a deep-rooted struggle over identity, territory, and survival. In conclusion, Israel's refusal of Hamas's latest proposal signals that peace in Gaza is still far from reach, as each side doubles down on its core demands. The world watches anxiously, hoping that diplomacy can still prevent another devastating war. This standoff between ideology and security continues to shape the destiny of millions across the region.